Look deep, deep into my eyes. You are witnessing a demonstration of the awesome power of the human mind. The unlimited potential of total concentration. My mind is totally focused, able to maintain absolute and utter control. A mind such as this is a powerful force. It could even rule the world.
Hey!
Huh?
Hey there, everybody. This is PTPOP, leading you out of the rabbit hole, one grain of truth at a time. And welcome back to my channel. And I was having some deep thoughts today. And I've had these thoughts for many years. And the mainstream media calls people like me as being red-pilled, which is a reference to the movie The Matrix. And I'm not going to go into The Matrix because most of us have seen The Matrix, and most of you know what I'm referring to. And if you don't, please do a search for The Matrix and watch the movie. And I was just wondering, I'm going to ask you a question. Have you ever had a moment where something just snaps? I don't mean you've gone crazy. I don't mean you've lost your marbles. But suddenly the world just doesn't look the same. An event in the world happens or something in your life happens. And nothing ever looks the same again. And that's what it's like to be red-pilled. It's like you've had this moment of clarity. You've had this moment of truth. And you begin to see the cracks in the system. The scripted smiles, the fake outrage, the endless distractions. The truth doesn't come with a bang. It comes with a whisper.
If you want to capture someone's attention, whisper.
Whisper to me.
I've said many times before in this channel and on my podcast, the truth began to whisper to me when I saw a film, a documentary from 2006 titled Loose Change, where the writer and the author of the film questioned the official narrative of the attacks of 9/11. Now, I'm not going to expound upon that because I'll get this video deleted. But it began to reshape my thoughts and how I viewed those events and how I began to view our government. And it was a very sobering moment. I was 2 years into my marriage, who I'm married to now, my wife, who I'm married to this day. We're approaching our 21st anniversary this May. And it was a very profound moment. It really stunned me because I had never questioned the official narrative, even though I had instincts that told me something wasn't quite right. Something told me that something was kind of fishy about that whole thing, but I wasn't quite certain what it was. And since those days, I have awakened. And I've realized that much of what happens in our world, not just our country in the United States where I'm located, but in our world, isn't exactly as it appears. It's far from it. And it occurred to me, and has occurred to many of you, that our media isn't just entertainment, it's programming. I mean, it's not just, when I say the media, I'm not just talking about CNN, Fox, the BBC, all those things. It's all media, Hollywood, it's all media. The news, the sitcoms, the talk shows, even movies. They're not just telling stories, they're shaping minds. They're shaping each of our minds. They're feeding you narratives. They're controlling your emotions, and they're steering your thoughts where they want them to go. This may sound paranoid to those of you that aren't awake, but everything has an agenda. They have an agenda to keep you asleep, keep you drugged up, keep you distracted, make you obedient. I mean, think about it. When you watch TV, when you watch the Super Bowl, when you watch a sitcom, when you watch the History Channel, you're bombarded with messages of take this pill and you'll get rid of this ailment. Take that pill and you'll feel good. Drink this whiskey and you'll be on top of the world sitting next to a gorgeous woman in a bar as you drink a dark brown liquid in a smoky bar room. You know, you'll be sexier. She'll be pretty. As, of course, the more beer and booze you drink, the prettier the women and the men get. It just goes without saying. Everyone gets beer goggles. But everyone and everything in the media, whether it's a movie, a sitcom, a radio show, it's not journalism, it's not acting, it's theater. Think of all the people we know. All the people we know whose lives have been derailed chasing fantasies the media fed them. And again, I'm talking about the entire spectrum of media. Perfect love, perfect careers, overnight success, become a rock star, become a famous artist, become, the next LeBron James, the next Michael Jordan, the next whoever it happens to be. They chase and they chase and they chase after that dangling carrot. They're chasing the wind. They're chasing after unicorns. 99% of those people we know never make it. They never get anywhere near it. And what's left behind? Broken hearts, broken dreams, dismantled families, all sacrificed for dreams that were never real to begin with. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? I'm part of that picture. When I was a kid, age of 8, I discovered the Beatles, the rock group The Beatles, and I was immediately obsessed, and I dreamed of becoming a rock star. I was going to become a rock star. I was going to become just like the Beatles. And I bought guitars, and I bitched, and I whined, and I complained. So my mother bought me a guitar, and I learned to play the guitar, and I learned to write songs, and I learned to perform in front of people, and I worked at it and worked at it and worked at it. Maybe not as hard as some guys. And I had some fun with it, and I made some money at it, but I never got any notoriety. I got some people that liked what I did. I had a friend in high school, my friend Mike. He dropped out of high school when he was 16. He had the same dreams. He was inspired by different music, and he dropped out, and he had some success with a band that he had. He had some success with a record in Japan, but he had to leave the United States and go to Japan to get that success. And he's had some success since that time, working in a very successful cover band. But I would say that his dreams weren't completely realized. Now, whether he's happy or not, I don't know. I have not seen him since like 1985, and I haven't spoken to him since I saw him on MySpace in like 2005. But my point is, here's a guy that sacrificed everything. He left his family. He left his friends. He dropped out of school. He jumped on a plane with his band and a manager and went to Japan to tour and to sell a record. And now he's schlepping around with some cover band here in the United States. Not to put him down, I'm not judging him, but many of us have stories like this that either we've done ourselves, myself included. I mean, I remember when I changed my degree, I was going to be an artist. I had this romanticized vision in my head of what it was to be an artist. I was going to go to school and learn the craft of being an artist by these all knowledgeable college professors that would teach me what it was to be an artist. When I got to college, in my opinion, my professors, to this day, I don't even know if they were artists. I never saw them draw. I never saw any of their work. I never saw them paint or pick up a pencil. They just walked around the room and told people how to fix their paintings or their drawings. I changed my degree to business thinking that would be a better way to make a living. My degree didn't help me. I got in the corporate world, and the corporate world was a dark, insidious place filled with politics and backstabbing, narcissism, sociopathic, psychopathic supervisors who became sadistic commandants just because they had the title of supervisor. Some of that's a bit grandiose, a bit overstated, but much of it is true. But as I've grown and as I've aged, I have turned all of these influencing forms of media off, I stopped watching the news. I watch a half an hour of news a night with my wife at dinner, local news. I will not watch the national news. I have not watched CNN since 2016. I haven't watched talk shows since 2015. So no more talk shows, no more late night propaganda. It's all propaganda. It's all heavily funded and fueled by the political left. And in my opinion, it's staffed by the CIA. There's government people running this. I don't listen to talk radio. It's governed by the same bodies of governmental and political figures. I rarely listen to music anymore. I used to listen to music all the time, every day. I couldn't live without music. It would be blaring in my car, it'd be blasting in my car, it'd be on in my house. I had CDs. I have record albums back here that I collected years ago. I had most of my CDs. I have every kind of music. I had jazz, I had classical, I have rock and roll, classic rock, blues, anything you could think of. I had heavy metal. I listened to everything. I used to I couldn't work out without heavy metal blaring in my headset. You know, it was AC/DC, Back in Black for those about to rock, boom, 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 to get my energy up and get me going. I couldn't study without music. Everything was music. And then one day, it all just changed. And the defining moment for me about music just came recently. I discovered a channel on YouTube called SwitcherATEM Radio, hosted by Mike Williams. And I discovered a book called, I believe it's called The Secrets of Laurel Canyon. Let me find the title of the book here. And I discovered a book called Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon, Laurel Canyon, Covert Ops in the Dark Heart of the Hippie Dream. And I have the book right here somewhere. And this is a fascinating book. It's written by David McGowan. He's since passed away since this book was published. But this book paints a picture of a much different scene that came out of the West Coast than one would have imagined. Now, I'm not going to go into that whole thing, but it changed my perspective. And another turning point came when I purchased a record album just recently, within the last last 5 years. Another turning point came when I purchased a record album within the last 5 years that I had never heard the whole album before. It was Crosby, Stills and Nash first album. And I remember putting it on in this very room and listening to it. I never paid much attention to it, really. I knew a few songs from it. But as I started to listen to it, I started to go into a trance. It was like I was being hypnotized. I was in like this dreamlike state as the songs played one after the other. It was the strangest and the scariest experience. I stopped myself. I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here? What's wrong with me? And for those of you that don't know this album, it contains songs such as Marrakesh Express and Sweet Judy Blue Eyes. And I've always been very susceptible to music. Music has always affected my emotions and my moods, my outlook. It has influenced how I look at different seasons, how I look at different holidays, how I look at different events in my life, how I look at love. It's one of the greatest intoxicants, or one of the greatest magical potions that's ever polluted and doped up my brain. But I do listen to jazz. Now, jazz seems different to me. Jazz, it breathes. It's an entity in and of itself. It's not noise. It seems to have a shape, and it moves and it breathes like a human organism, or like an organism. Jazz is a whole different thing. It can affect your moods. But some jazz, you can put it on, you just feel good, and that's it. It doesn't make you want to go run naked through the street. It doesn't make you want to tear down buildings. It doesn't want to make you go find women in a bar. It's just there. It just kind of lives and breathes in and out of its own, as if it's its own living organism. And I started to look at the political theater of things around us, especially since President Trump's first administration, and even further back into George W. Bush and into Obama, when I became aware of the situation of the political environment around the world and in our country since September 11th. And it appears that politics, it's all a performance as well. The left, the right, it's the same play with different actors. They just keep switching out the lead character. It's like a James Bond film. Instead of Sean Connery, you put in another guy and another guy and another guy over the last 60 years. And once you're awake, you see it for what it is. You see through the thin veneer. It's a circus of maniacal egos, all pretending to serve the people while serving themselves. I mean, look at the people in our political offices right now, the Nancy Pelosi's, the Joe Biden's. These people become multimillionaires. Their salary is no more than $200,000 a year. How did they become multi-million, in some cases billionaires, while serving public office? Nobody questions it. Nobody brings them up on charges. It's all part of the game. Meanwhile, you and I are paying taxes for everything. It's not just taxes out of our paycheck. We're taxed at the gas pump. We're taxed for the houses we buy. We're taxed for the food we eat. We're taxed for the restaurants we go in. We're taxed everywhere we go. And they say we don't have a lot of taxes in this country, but really we do. When you include all the other taxes, I bet you we were taxed at least 50% of our income. And then they take that money and they push it off into these shell companies, or they send them off to these alleged charities around the world to try to help people, allegedly. But the money, we don't know where the money goes. We don't know how they spend it. We don't know if the money goes off to some tropical island and they in turn launder it and send it back and put it into the pockets of our fine politicians. When you wake up like this, when you're red-pilled, it's very lonely. It's like walking through a dream where everyone else is asleep and you're trying to wake them up. You're shaking them. You're like, wake up, it's all a lie. Stop, And you can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unsee the truth. Once you've seen it, your world changes. The deeper you go, the more distant you become from the world you once trusted. And as I said, I've distanced myself from most things. When you go out in the world, I'm not agoraphobic. I'm not afraid of people. But when I go out on the mornings, I go out to go to the gym to work out, when I go to the park to go for a walk, you see people speeding in their cars in a 25-mile-an-hour zone doing 50. Going where? Why? What drives them to be so insensitive and dangerous and reckless, to drive so quickly to get from one place to the next? What could possibly be the hurry, unless someone is dying in your car? But people don't care anymore. People are rude, insensitive. They're mindless. They walk like zombies through the aisles of all these different department stores like Costco and Walmart. The local drugstore just like, you may as well just be a mindless zombie. And they walk in front of you. They don't seem to care that you're trying to get past them in the aisle. And believe it or not, I know I'm 59. I'm older than a lot of you. But there was a time in our country where people were kind, where people were polite, where people weren't so absorbed with their 15 minutes of fame, with chasing after the wind, with chasing after unicorns. Now, it seems like every person, not every other person, but every person now is in pursuit of superstardom of some sort. They're delusional. They're unaware. They're unfeeling. They're insensitive. to their friends' needs, their family's needs, their children's needs, anybody. It's just about them now. We've become a culture obsessed with ego. We're drunk on self-image, driven by lust, delusion, and indulgence. Everything is about gratification, instant fame, your 15 minutes of fame, endless validation, and the illusion of control. We're not guided by truth anymore. We're chasing dopamine in a digital funhouse. Now, I know I don't want to bring the Bible into this. God forbid if I bring the Bible into this. But this is what Christ warned us of in the end times. Now, I'm not so certain myself who Christ is or was. But I know one thing is when I read the Bible, I feel a clarity in my heart. I feel a certainty in my heart. I see something that is truthful. The words that are spoken and the words of Christ are everything that he said would happen. And it's fascinating to watch. It's scary. It's horrifying and fascinating at the same time. I'm not certain if the outcome will be as he prophesied. But the deeper you go, once you're red-pilled, the more distant you become from this world you once trusted. And I believe that's a good thing. Now, why do I bring this up? I'm not here to try to recruit Christians. I'm not here to push the Bible down your throat. But I'm at a place in my life where I can no longer stay silent. Because I remember what it was like to believe the lie. I remember what it was like to be in a trance state by the media, to be hypnotized by music, movies, sitcoms, the news, turning on CNN and being horrified that there were terrorists in every corner, that the Russians were going to be sending missiles over the north, over Canada, into our cities. They had my father and I looking, our eyes cast towards the sky, looking at the contrails of the planes above us, and he would say, oh, those are probably Russian bombers, or those are probably American bombers that circle the earth. But now that I can see clearly, I feel called to help others to see this. I'm not just doing this for clicks. Sure, I want to make money out of this. Sure, I'd love to be able to make enough money to say this is my full-time job, but I can't. And it's not going to happen. The cards are stacked against me. And I'm not saying this because I have all the answers, but because truth isn't something you keep to yourself. It's something you share. Because, in my opinion, if I can just reach one of you out there, wake you up to make you look at things differently, it would be a success. I would have achieved something. The chances of my voice being heard above the din of all the madness is going to be rare. I'm not a big voice. I'm not a Joe Rogan. I'm not a Dan Bongino. But I have to try. In my life, I've seen a lot of despair. I've seen a lot of deception. I have seen betrayal beyond betrayal from those closest to me in my family and many of my friends. I have seen people take advantage of me because at one time I was very impressionable and easily manipulated, and I was quiet and unassuming. People took advantage of that. I've had my heart broken by the best of them. But now that I'm awake, I'm seeing that those people who betrayed me were delusional. That they were ill too. They were in a dream world. They were chasing after all the things that I was once chasing after. Money, control, manipulation. And it's very sobering when you start to see this stuff. The people closest to you will do this because they think they have to have something. They're driven. They're obsessed with money. They're obsessed with power. They're obsessed with control. So let me ask you this. If you've been red-pilled, or you're just beginning to question everything, drop a comment. What opened your eyes? You're not alone. And I urge you not to stay silent. Because there's many people around us that are very lonely right now. There are many people around us that are hurting. And they're hurting because they're not able to achieve all the things they're told to achieve, that they need to achieve to be happy. They don't have the wife or the spouse, the job or the house. They don't have the money, the bank account. They don't have the golden retriever and the 2.5 kids, the fancy job. And they think they're nothing. They think they're alone. They think there's nothing out there for them. And they're thinking of doing some drastic things because they can't take the pain anymore. And my friends, I've been there. I have been there. I'm not Glenn Beck. I'm not affiliated with any political parties. I'm not affiliated with any particular church. I've done some things in my life that I'm not proud of. I've done some things in my life that I am proud of. I've always tried to maintain myself as a decent person. I've tried to live by the rules of this world and be kind. And I haven't always lived that way. I've been judgmental, and I have made fun of people when I was much younger. And I still make fun of people. I have a sense of humor. And I don't go out of my way and mock people. But you see what I do here on this channel. I make fun of some people that I think are silly. But they're broken people out there now. I'm one of them. We're all broken. And I'm asking you to raise your head up. Raise your voices. And let the world know that you're not asleep anymore. You don't have to be mean or belligerent about it. You don't have to hit people over the head. Because as we all know, when those of us around us are asleep and you try to wake them up to the lies, they think you're crazy. They think you're insane. Now, I'm not talking about flat earthers. I'm not talking about moon hoaxes and aliens from space. I'm just talking about just general things. Can you imagine what life would be like if we just treated each other better? What would it be like if fathers and mothers and children worked together as a family unit? But somewhere back in the 60s, there was a division. Somebody walked into our Western culture with a shotgun and blew the American family to pieces, so to speak. And literally and so to speak. Our families were shattered. People were sent off in different directions to pursue dreams, fantasies, illusions, chasing after becoming models and rock stars and football players and newscasters and all of this crap that doesn't matter. In the meantime, they abandoned their lives, they abandoned their homes, they abandoned their families, and the mothers and the fathers before them did the same thing in pursuit of the American dream. They said, yes, my son, it's time for you to leave the home, leave the nest and go on to college. And then in college, you'll find your spouse and you'll start a new life and you'll leave us here to rot and get old in our old rickety home. They have commercialized every aspect of the American life and Western civilization. Everything is a commodity now. Marriage is a commodity. Death is a commodity. Birth is a commodity. Our illnesses are now a way to make money. It's a product. We've been bought and sold and metaphorically raped and raked over the coals for the last 80 years since the end of the war. And bodies lay strewn across the battlefield. People are left alone, lonely, aching, desperate, contemplating dark and insidious things. And we sit back and we go, well, why? I don't understand why that guy did what he did. I don't know. Oh, I mean, he must be mentally ill. He must be off his meds. No. Look at people. Someone can only take so much. How much more can we all take? I'm not talking about myself, each and every one of you. How much more can we be pushed before somebody snaps and does something? We've been bullied over and over again, pushed and manipulated, and people are waking up to it. It's time for us to break away from it. Think of it. I mean, think of what if one day unified against the media. And what if everybody had this awakening? We went, you know what? I'm turning off my TV. I'm getting rid of my phone. I'm getting rid of Facebook. I'm getting rid of all of it. Screw it. And I'm going to go across the street and help the little old lady who needs her trash taken out. I'm going to go work in a homeless shelter. We're going to start being, and I know I'm talking about things that most of you probably think are Pollyanna or a little bit saccharine sweet. But there's people out there that are desperately hurting. I mean, look at me. I'm a 59-year-old man. Still physically able, mentally strong, creative. And I couldn't get a job if my life counted on it. I can't even get a job hired at the local metro parks as a maintenance person, cleaning the bathrooms and emptying the trash cans. Probably because I'm too old and too white. Or I don't have a record, a criminal record. I spent my whole life walking that tightrope of trying to be the good boy. And it's coming back to bite me. In this day and age, if you've got a criminal record, you can get a job. Think about what a much better world this would be if we put ourselves aside and we focused on each other instead of ourselves. So if you've been red-pilled and you're beginning to question everything, drop a comment. What opened your eyes? Where did it start for you? What are you going to do with it? I can tell you this, you're not alone. I'm not the only one. There's millions of us here on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. As long as we have voices, as long as you have a voice and they allow us to voice the truth, I urge you to voice your views and your visions of this world and a better world we could live in. I can guarantee you they're not going to let it happen. They're going to start wars. They're going to start terrorist acts. They're going to start all kinds of things. This is just what they warned of in the Bible. This is what Christ warned of. There'll be wars and conflicts in the final times, in the end times. I was part of it. I was part of all the noise. Just pull yourself out of the noise. Now like, share, and subscribe if you like my channel. This is PTPOP, leading out of the rabbit hole, one grain of truth at a time. Have a good day. Bye.